The next few lines are filled with more dissonance, more contradictions, images that stand in tension with one another. These are possible avenues that could tempt him to fear, ways through which his deepest fears could actually come to pass. First, the end of verse 4, there's this image of God's weapons providing comfort. The rod refers to the club that a shepherd would use to drive away bandits or vicious beasts. Now, theoretically, God protecting you from harm is a comforting thought. But in actuality, far from being comforted, David grieved when Saul was killed. When his son Absalom was killed, he was absolutely shattered. In those cases, the fact that he was no longer in danger didn't bring him any comfort. In those cases, David's sensitive mind could not get over God's severity. The staff is the tool that the shepherd uses to keep the sheep in line. But it's as much a weapon as it is a tool, since it provided an option for discipline. And that discipline could be gentle, or it could be firm, or it could be really painful, if necessary. The tension in the next line is also obvious. Verse 5. First of all, he's switched up his metaphor. He's been painting pastoral scenes all along. Why the sudden shift from the flock to the table? Can't help but ask this question. There must be something David can't get at as well with sheep that he can by using the symbol of a banquet. And that's this exquisite tension that comes from the idea of sitting down to a meal with your enemies. It's a perplexing image, just on its own. Why would God make you share a plate with someone you don't like? Someone who doesn't like you? Is that really supposed to be appealing? And it's made all the more jarring because of this sudden change in venue. The next line doesn't have an obvious contradiction. The tension there comes from the fact that to someone like David, who is steeped in biblical imagery, both the anointing and the cup are ambiguous. Both could either be hopeful or ominous. The image of God filling a cup in the Bible mostly leads to a bad outcome for the person who has to drink it. In another psalm, Psalm 11, David himself writes of the cup of the wicked being filled with a burning wind. Psalm 75 gives us the most typical imagery. It speaks of a cup in the hand of the Lord, full of foaming wine mixed with spices that the wicked are forced to drink. And of course, Jesus famously begged God to let this cup pass from me. The word anoint that we have here is not the one that's usually related to the Messiah. This word that we have here is usually referring to grease or fat, to someone or something becoming greasy or fat. Deuteronomy uses this word to describe the state of God's people who become self-satisfied, about to turn to false gods. Isaiah uses the same word in connection with God's judgment. So given this unexpected turn to the banqueting table, to eating with one's enemies, the tension is mounting. The possibility of fear is growing. Knowing that he is a sinner, knowing that God is holy and perfect, can David's fear actually be put to rest in God's presence? Can God resolve all this tension? He can. But before he does, he ratchets it up one more time with the most surprising word of all, the most incongruous word, the one we've translated in our Bibles as follow. Follow. Again, this is a Hebrew word that almost always has a negative meaning. It's usually used when some hostile enemy is chasing after you. And we even find it on David's own lips, used that way. He uses it to describe how Saul has been hunting him down. But here, at the highest moment of tension in this psalm, David uses it to describe the relentless, energetic way that God actively pursues him, how God's goodness and his covenant faithfulness, not the disaster that he actually deserves, are tracking him. God's mercy is unstoppable. David can say, I will fear no evil, because he recognizes that there is a kind and wise purpose in God's unswerving pursuit. There is a plan of rescue, a plan that will redeem even the worst of his sins, a plan that he can't completely understand, but which he nevertheless trusts completely. And that plan is the one which he sees being worked out in the very last line, I will dwell in your house forever. This is the promise at the climax of David's life.